Good afternoon and welcome to Lunch Break Live with Tea Party Patriots. I'm Jenny Beth Martin with Tea Party Patriots Action. In just a moment, we'll be joined by Bill Pasco, who will give you the Washington Report and also a campaign update. Before we do that, please take a moment to share this Lunch Break Live with Tea Party Patriots with your friends on the social network you're listening to or watching this video. If it is on Facebook, then share it with your Facebook friends. If it is on YouTube or Rumble or in a podcast, share that with your friends and like it and give it all the likes that it needs so that we can make sure other people hear what we are doing, both for calls to action and also with the things that are going on in Washington, D.C. What we are asking you to do for our call to action this week is twofold. For the updates for what to do, because Congress is back in session in September. The end of the fiscal year happens this month, in the beginning of the 2025 fiscal year for the United States federal government is on October 1st. To get those calls to action, go to teapartypatriots.org, and we will update the calls to action there. And we may be updating them in the middle of the week because things move really fast at this time of year when spending is going on and it's considered must-pass legislation. So go to teapartypatriots.org and check that every day just in case we've updated that call to action. Now, for another call to action from our 527 Super PAC, Tea Party Patriots Citizens Fund, we are asking you to help us get out the vote for President Trump. We need to make sure that we are focusing on the swing states that it will take to help him win the electoral vote. However, if you don't live in one of those states like Arizona or Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, or Nevada, that is okay because we have activities that you can do from the comfort of your own home or bringing together a group of friends either in your home or at a coffee shop or at a restaurant or at your local conservative club meeting, Tea Party meeting, whichever kind of meeting you have, that you can do to help us get out the vote in those all-important swing states. Go to marchtovictory.com. Again, go to marchtovictory.com. And when you do that, we have a few different items that you can sign up for. One is phone banking or making phone calls to voters. We'll have an app for you to download to be able to make those calls. If for some reason you can't use the app, just let us know by shooting me an email at jenny.beth@teapartypatriots.org, and we'll get you a good old-fashioned phone list. We also have postcards for you. The postcards look like this, and on the back side of the postcard, the address to the voter is already typed up, so you don't even have to address it. All you do is write your message to the voter and then put a stamp on it and put it in the mail. So that's what we're asking you to do, and we will ship these postcards to you. So marchtovictory.com to sign up for that. We have a couple other options for you, going door to door, increasing voter turnout, and also poll watching. You can sign up for any of those activities, and we'll make sure that we plug you in and give you instructions after you sign up so that you can be engaged and help us work to win the election. So that is what we're asking you to do, marchtovictory.com, marchtovictory.com. Now we're going to go to Bill Pasco for our Washington Report.
Thank you, Jenny Beth. The House and Senate are both back in town this week. They'll both come in today and leave on Thursday. As to the House agenda, the House returns today with the first vote set for 6:30 p.m. At that time, the House is scheduled to consider 30 bills under suspension of the rules. On Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the House will consider the following bills: H.R. 1516, the DHS Restrictions on Confucius Institutes and Chinese Entities of Concern Act; H.R. 1398, the Protect America's Innovation and Economic Security from CCP Act of 2024; H.R. 9456, the Protecting American Agriculture from Foreign Adversaries Act of 2024; H.R. 1425, the No WHO Pandemic Preparedness Treaty Without Senate Approval Act; H.R. 7980, the End Chinese Dominance of Electric Vehicles in America Act; and H.R. Unknown, the Continuing Appropriations and Other Matters Act, about which we will speak more in just a moment. This week in the Senate will return today with the first vote set for 5:30 p.m. At that time, the Senate will proceed to a roll call vote to end debate on the nomination of Adam B. Abelson to be a U.S. District Judge for the District of Maryland. Then, based on the Majority Leader's cloture filings, I anticipate we'll also see a vote on the Abelson nomination itself after debate is ended, and we'll see a vote on the nomination of Jeanette A. Vargas to be a U.S. District Judge for the Southern District of New York. Now let's talk about the House and Senate agenda. Congress plans to be in session for 13 days this month, and then, if all goes according to plan, both houses will recess for 5 weeks to allow the members to campaign. In those 13 legislative days, 4 this week, 4 next week, and then all 5 days of the last full week of September, the House and Senate will have to come to agreement on a continuing resolution to keep the government funded and avoid a temporary partial government shutdown at the end of the month when the current fiscal year ends and the next fiscal year begins. On Wednesday of last week, Speaker Mike Johnson informed his Republican colleagues on a conference call that he had decided to package a continuing resolution that will extend government funding for 6 months until March 28, 2025, and will include the SAVE Act, which requires states to obtain documentary proof of citizenship before registering someone to vote in a federal election. That's currently prohibited by law. This common sense enforcement method passed the House on a bipartisan basis in July, but has been held up in the Senate, where Majority Leader Schumer has made clear he has no desire to bring it to the floor for a vote. In coming to this decision, Speaker Johnson is following the wishes of the conservatives in the House Freedom Caucus, who issued a statement several weeks ago urging him to take these 2 steps. That is, to extend funding deep into the new year and to add the SAVE Act to the CR. Democrats and some Republicans don't want a CR to last that long. They think the CR should simply extend funding past the elections, into the middle of December, say, so the lame duck Congress can finish its work by using the early November through mid-December period to fashion a full-year omnibus spending bill. Supporters of the short funding extension note that it is, after all, the obligation of the current Congress to pass the appropriations bills necessary to fund the government for the fiscal year 2025, which begins on October 1. If both houses had done their jobs properly, all 12 funding bills would have been passed and signed into law by September 30. So, they argue, a stopgap funding measure, the continuing resolution, should extend funding only as long as is necessary for the 2 houses to get their work done and be gone. While there is some logic to that argument, Republicans want to take advantage of the opportunity to extend funding deeper into the fiscal year for 2 reasons. First, by extending funding until the end of March, they avoid the terrible prospect of a lame duck Congress passing an omnibus funding bill that maintains Democrat spending priorities and spending levels. A lame duck Congress will have 40 or 50 members, maybe as much as 10% of the entire Congress, that isn't going to stand for election ever again. And because they're not going to stand for election again, they're no longer accountable to their constituents. At least, their constituents will never again have a chance to throw them out of office in an election if they don't like what the member does in the lame duck session. So the fear is members who are lame ducks are totally untethered, and that makes them susceptible to the blandishments of the swamp. And that leads to out-of-control spending, because the only thing that ever kept a member of Congress from voting for more and more spending is the fear that his or her constituents might punish him or her at the ballot box for doing that. The first reason is in place anytime there's a lame duck Congress. The second reason is unique to the current situation. By extending funding into the new year, you get the chance to have the new Congress and the new president make final decisions on funding priorities for the second half of the fiscal year. And in the current context, that means you might actually be able to have a Republican-controlled Senate and a Trump White House sitting at the table with Speaker Johnson making final decisions. So, If you're a conservative Republican and you think there's a decent chance that by extending funding into March of 2025, you might end up with a different set of negotiating partners sitting at the big table, why wouldn't you hold out for it? Now, here's the hard part. None of this works unless Speaker Johnson can start the ball rolling down the hill by passing the CR plus SAVE Act. He plans to bring it to the floor Wednesday. He's got only 3 votes to spare, and there are already at least 2 Republicans who have announced they will oppose the stopgap spending bill. So there's no guarantee that this strategy comes to fruition. Even if Johnson succeeds in holding enough Republicans together to pass the bill through the House, it's likely that Majority Leader Schumer will do one of 2 things when it reaches the Senate. He'll ignore it entirely and just use a bill that's already passed the House as the vehicle for his own continuing resolution, which will extend funding through mid-December and not include the SAVE Act. Or he'll take the House-passed bill, strip out the SAVE Act, and change the funding extension to only last into mid-December. And he'll put that on the floor, and he'll probably get the 10 Republican votes he needs to break a filibuster, and he'll send that back to the House. And then Speaker Johnson will likely take it up and pass it, because he won't want to be blamed for a shutdown just weeks before an election. So if the end result is going to be passage of a so-called clean CR that only extends funding into mid-December with no SAVE Act attached, why go through the exercise at all? Because even if Schumer refuses to put the House-passed bill on the floor, it will give Republicans a new talking point about an issue that energizes the base and puts the Democrats in a bad light, because Schumer will have refused for the second time to take up a bill that adds a common-sense enforcement mechanism to better implement current law that prohibits non-citizens from voting in federal elections. And it will once again put House Democrats on the hook for having voted against a common-sense enforcement mechanism to ensure that the law prohibiting non-citizens from voting in federal elections is actually followed. Stay tuned. Now to the latest on the Biden impeachment. Hunter Biden's trial on tax charges started last week and ended just as quickly. In a shocking move, Biden entered guilty pleas to all 9 charges against him, 3 felonies and 6 misdemeanors. On the day jury selection was supposed to begin, Biden's attorney surprised the judge by informing the court that Biden wanted to enter what's called an Alford plea, in which the defendant pleads guilty while still maintaining his innocence. Prosecutors argued strenuously against the maneuver, saying they wanted to go to trial. After several hours of hearing, which included 90 minutes of reading aloud the entire indictment, the judge finally allowed Biden to enter a standard guilty plea. Then he asked Biden, quote, "Do you agree you committed every element of every crime in the indictment?" And Biden said yes, before saying guilty each time the judge asked him how he pleaded to each charge. Biden will be sentenced in the gun case on November 13. He will be sentenced in the current tax case on December 16. President Biden has pledged neither to pardon his son nor to commute his sentences. Now to the latest on the anti-Trump lawfare front. On Friday afternoon, New York Judge Juan Merchan, acknowledging that Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's 34-count case against former President Trump has what he called a unique place in this nation's history, moved Trump's sentencing date from September 18 to November 26, saying the delay was necessary to ensure the integrity of the case. Quote, "The imposition of sentence will be adjourned to avoid any appearance, however unwarranted, that the proceeding has been affected by or seeks to affect the approaching presidential election in which the defendant is a candidate," he said. Now let's talk about 2024's campaign, specifically the debate. The debate about debates is over. and the end result is that on Tuesday evening, tomorrow night, former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris will meet at the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia for a debate to be broadcast beginning at 9 p.m. The debate will last for 90 minutes, and there will be 2 commercial breaks. The rules will be the same as the rules that applied during the CNN debate between Trump and Joe Biden on June 27. There will be no studio audience, and the candidates' mics will be muted when it is not a candidate's turn to speak. Candidates will be given 2 minutes to answer a question and 2 minutes for a rebuttal. The debate will be hosted by ABC and will be simulcast on multiple outlets, including C-SPAN, PBS, MSNBC, Fox News, and others. It will also be streamed on ABC News Live, Disney Plus, and Hulu. ABC News anchors David Muir and Lindsay Davis will moderate the debate and ask all the questions. Though both candidates have indicated a willingness to participate in another debate, no second Trump-Harris debate has yet been agreed to, and I would bet that this will be the only debate between the two. If Trump is seen as winning the debate, his team will say he's defeated all comers and has no need to debate again. If Harris is seen as winning, she'll go back into Joe Biden's basement for the remaining 55 days of the campaign, and she'll let her paid advertising communicate her message for the duration. Trump has a not-secret weapon as he prepares for the debate, if he chooses to use it. Former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who eviscerated Kamala Harris in a 2019 Democrat presidential primary debate, has been advising Trump as he readies himself. Now let's turn to the latest polls. Yesterday's New York Times led with the results of a new New York Times Sienna College poll showing the presidential race essentially tied among likely voters, with Trump at 48% and Harris at 47%. Given the massive wave of favorable media attention focusing on Harris since her ascension 6 weeks ago, this is not good news for the Harris campaign. If she can't drive all that favorable media coverage over the last 6 weeks to a large lead, what hope does she have? The national results are in line with results in the 7 battleground states, according to the Times polling averages, which show Harris leading Trump by 3 points at 50 to 47% in Wisconsin, by 2 points at 49 to 47 in Michigan, by 1 point at 49 to 48 in Pennsylvania, and tied at 48 in Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, and Arizona. Harris remains unknown to a significant slice of the electorate. According to the Times Sienna survey, 28% of likely voters said they felt they needed to know more about Harris, while just 9% said that about Trump. 2/3 of those who said they needed to know more about her said they needed to know more about her policies specifically. The good news for the Harris campaign is that she's made up lots of ground with traditionally Democrat-leaning voter groups, women, young people, black voters, and Hispanic voters. The bad news for the Harris campaign is she started so far behind with those groups that she's still trailing where Joe Biden was with them in 2020. Moreover, if this is a change election, and every election since at least 2008 has been a change election, and I see no reason why this one will be any different, she's got a long way to go. More than 60% of the survey sample said the next president should represent a major change from Biden. Only 25% say that Harris represents a major change from Biden, while 53% say that about Trump. And while just 32% of the sample said they see Trump as too conservative, 47% said they see Harris as too liberal. Now finally to the Jenny Beth Show. Since we've last been together, 2 new episodes of the Jenny Beth Show have dropped. On Wednesday, August 28th, just 2 days before the national release of the movie Reagan, starring Dennis Quaid as our 40th president, Jenny Beth's interview with Ed Meese, one of Governor and then President Reagan's closest and most trusted advisors, dropped, completing the Reagan trifecta: Morton Blackwell, Craig Shirley, and then former Attorney General Ed Meese. Then on Wednesday, September 4, Jenny Beth's discussion with Sally Grubbs, chairwoman of the Cobb County Republican Party, dropped. The two discuss recent changes to Georgia election law and how that might impact the outcome of the election in November. As always, highly recommended. And that's our Washington report for this week.
Bill, thank you so much for that Washington report. Now, let me just go through one more time what the call to action is. Go to marchtovictory.com, marchtovictory.com, to get engaged with Tea Party Patriots Citizens Fund, a 527 super PAC, and you'll be able to do different activities like making phone calls to voters, helping increase voter turnout, going door to door, hosting a house party, poll watching, and also postcards to voters that you write your own message to the voter on, and it's already addressed. We do ask that you put a stamp on it and put it in the mail. If you cannot put stamps on it, let us know. And if you're not able to do postcards, but you are able to donate, you can click on the donate button at the top of that website and donate, and we'll be able to take money and help others who maybe can't put stamps on but are willing to do a lot of postcards get those postcards in the mail. So and the donations also go to help with all of our other Get Out the Vote activities. Those are the action items from Tea Party Patriots Citizens Fund. As for the activity on Capitol Hill, go to teapartypatriots.org, teapartypatriots.org, to get the update for that. And with that, we're going to close out. If you have any questions or need any help from us at all, just shoot us an email, jenny.beth@teapartypatriots.org, jenny.beth@teapartypatriots.org, and make sure you like and share this broadcast so that your friends can get the update from Washington and the call to action. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.